Hi, I'm Maureen. Today we'll be changing the hydraulic brake fluid in a Vespa LX150. The LX150 uses DOT4 brake fluid. Check your owner's manual to see what your Vespa uses. The procedures in this video can be used on any disc brake. Brake fluid will absorb moisture. You need to make sure you change your brake fluid every 2 years regardless of miles. The first thing we need to do is remove the plastic headlight housing in order to get to the brake fluid reservoir. In order to do that, we need to remove both of the mirrors. Remember, there's a washer underneath, so don't be surprised if it falls. Next step, we have to remove the horn cover. That's done by removing the Piaggio badge. Make sure that you put some tape on your screwdriver so you don't scratch the paint. Next, I'm going to remove the screw using my Phillips head screwdriver and then remove the horn cover. Make sure you're using your magnetic tray so you don't lose any screws or washers. I'm going to remove the plastic cover. There's 3 screws, 2 in the back and 1 in the front. There are 2 plastic tabs, 1 on each side. They break very easily, but if you use a flat angled screwdriver, you can pop them right off. You have to disconnect the wires in order to get the plastic cover off. Now that the cover is off, you can see that we can easily access the reservoir. There are many different ways to drain the brake fluid. You can get a pump. You can use a process with 2 people. To make it easier for me, I bought a one-way valve. To put the valve on, the first thing you need to do is remove the rubber cover. I'm going to attach a 10mm wrench to the bleeder valve. I can put the plastic tubing onto the bleeder valve. I'm just going to move the clamp down so that it doesn't come off. I'm going to use the old water bottle to contain the old brake fluid. To make sure the hose doesn't come out, I'm going to tape it on. If brake fluid gets on your paint, it can ruin the finish. So just in case, I'm going to put some towels on. Also, you want to make sure that this is very level, so you want to turn the handlebars to make sure that it's in a level position. I can now use the Phillips head screwdriver to remove the reservoir cover. I can now remove the cover. You might want to have a rag in hand so it doesn't trip on anything. Brake fluid is clear. You can tell that this has a brown color to it, which means it needs to be changed. One way to make sure the process goes faster is to suck out all the fluid in the reservoir. I'm going to use a turkey baster to get it out. You don't want to get air in the brake line, so before we start, we're going to fill up the reservoir with new fluid. Since I'm doing this by myself, I'm going to put the reservoir cap back on without the screws to make sure nothing splashes out. The next thing we need to do is turn our 10mm wrench a quarter turn. You now want to squeeze the brake lever a constant gentle pressure. You make sure you don't want to pump it. Now I'm going to close the valve just snug. You can see the dark fluid coming out through the clear hose. I'm going to give 4 steady pumps to pressurize the system. You want to keep an eye on the fluid level because if it goes too low, you'll get air in the system. Now I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to open the valve a quarter turn. Now give it 1 steady pump. Now I'm going to close the valve. And give it 4 pumps to pressurize the system. I'm just going to continue repeating this process until I can see clear fluid coming through the tube. After repeating that process 3 or 4 times, I realized that I could leave the bleeder valve open and just steadily pump because I was using the one-way valve. You can see that I now have clear fluid coming through the hose. I'm now going to tighten the bleeder valve. You can find the torque specifications in your workshop manual. I'm now going to fill the reservoir with fluid just above the window. I'm going to put the reservoir cap back on and screw in the screws. When you put the cap back on and screw in the screws, you might have a little seepage coming out of brake fluid. Don't worry, it's perfectly normal. You probably just overfilled it a little bit. Just wipe it off. When you take the hose off, some brake fluid's going to spill. Just make sure you wipe it off. You probably saw that brake fluid fly when I took the hose off. In hindsight, I probably should have been wearing safety goggles and rubber gloves. Look what it did to my nails. My producer's paying for this. Now I'm just going to put the rubber cover back on. Now I'm going to put the plastic headlight housing back on. Now I'll put the horn cover back on. Be careful not to drop the washers when you put the mirrors back on. Of course you want to do a test drive to make sure there's no leaks or anything, but as you can see, it's raining now. You can't save brake fluid, so make sure you buy a bottle fit for your job. And when you're done, take the used and unused brake fluid to a place such as your local auto parts store and ask them if they can recycle it. Plastic headlight housing to get to the main. You can't save brake fluid, so make sure you buy a bottle that's going to fit your job. And when you have extra, take it to a place like your local auto parts. Yeah. Son of a hoe. There we go.
That's going to be the blooper.